Hello, my name is Kathy Wall. I'm the director of the Inclusion Collaborative, and today we are presenting the Calming Kit Information and Overview. This is a partnership between the Discovery Source and the Inclusion Collaborative of the Santa Clara County Office of Education. Today we're going to provide information and overview for folks to have as an accompanying to the materials. Our outcomes today are to learn about services provided by the Inclusion Collaborative, to gain some understanding of the importance of recognizing feelings, become familiar with strategies to support social emotional self-regulation, and then we would like to make sure everyone knows how to use the Calming Kit. So the Inclusion Collaborative, just a little bit of overview for you, is a department at the Santa Clara County Office of Education. And we always look at our why of why we support children and families. And our why is to that every individual, regardless of abilities and disabilities, have the right to full access to quality inclusive learning and community environments. And we truly believe that everyone should be included. So part of our activities are to provide lots of technical assistance, coaching, trainings, and one of these trainings is the Calming Kit that has developed into something more. So we're going to share that with you today. This is our website in case you'd like to find out more information about the Inclusion Collaborative. You can link on and become part of our mailing list. You can link onto our Facebook where we have ongoing news flashes going through. And we have a Pinterest that supports different adaptations and modifications, very popular in the fall. And we have a YouTube channel that has previous trainings located on it. And it's free, by the way. The Inclusion Collaborative also has a support warm line where we provide free support information and referrals for families, parents, foster parents, grandparents, teachers. We've had social workers. A lot of folks call to get information about how to include children with disabilities in their community. So I encourage you to use this free line. We always like to start out when we talk about feelings is to check in ourselves and how we're feeling right now. So just take a moment and check in with how you feel today. Where are you today? And this just has some photos on it that shows pictures of different feelings. And see if you can kind of identify how you're feeling at the moment while you're learning about self-regulation and social emotional regulation. There's a variety of feelings and emotions listed on this slide, but you can certainly add more. So it's good to connect with your own feelings while learning about self-regulation. And then it's really good to think about what were you taught about emotions? As a child growing up, were you taught to express emotions? Were you taught to show emotions? Were you directly taught? Was it indirectly taught? Were there some emotions that you as a child weren't allowed to show or express? And then how comfortable are you now with emotions? Because when you're working on social emotional development with young children, it's really good to reach in and identify where you are in this. So that's a good pre-teaching for yourself as an adult when you're working on self-regulation with children. We always like to point out that it's really important to understand all emotions and all feelings are valid. Everyone has feelings and it's okay to have them. It's what you do with them that counts. We also know that feelings can change, some very quickly, some not so quickly. You can also have feelings, more than one feeling at a time, and this can be called mixed emotions, where you're really happy that you're looking at this presentation right now, but you're kind of sad because you wish you were playing at the beach right now. So that's a mixed emotion. And you can also feel differently than someone else about the same thing. People have different lenses, and it's okay to feel differently about the same activity or situation that's happening. So those are just some things to remember about feelings and emotions when you're teaching them. We're now going to look at a clip and see what it looks like if adults regulated like toddlers. And I'd like you just to take a little notice and reflect on how you feel when you're looking at this.
I don't want to pay bills. I don't want to pay bills. I don't want to pay. I want to be there now. I want to be there now. No, 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 no. I don't know where I'm going. Mama. Where's my Wi-Fi? I hate you, Wi-Fi. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. I wanted soy. 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 I wanted soy.
So, how did everyone enjoy that video? Have you experienced that yourself or ever witnessed that? This is what it would look like if adults regulated like toddlers, and so that's why it's so crucial that we teach self-regulation. So what do you do as an adult human being to self-regulate yourself? We all have many ways that we self-regulate. Some of us drink coffee in the morning. I know I do. Some of us do deep breaths. Some of us talk to a friend, which is a good idea. Some of us have animals or pets that take us on a walk, and that helps to regulate us. Many of us do yoga these days. Yoga is very good for self-regulating. Some people play video games or gaming to self-regulate. And there's quite a large number of us who self-regulate using food, which can be a problem down the road, but it is good to realize that that's what you're doing. So we have all learned how to self-regulate as adults. So let's just talk about what is self-regulation, so everyone has the definition for it. Self-regulation is the ability to regulate your thinking, your emotions, and your behavior. The little inner voice inside you says, "Oh, I better not say that right now," or "I shouldn't do that right now." And so it's your ability to regulate your own thinking, emotions, and behavior. Children translate experiences into information that they can use to regulate. Many of us know that newborn babies, when they are very young, need a lot of regulation. And when they're crying and out of control, we know to rock them back and forth. We know to swaddle them together. We know to put their hands together, bring their hands to their mouth. And they, over time, learn to do that for themselves. And that's adults giving children self-regulation experiences that they can then internalize and use. And so that's what we need to keep doing with children. A lot of us forget about that once the babies stop crying. Children develop self-regulation ideally from birth to age 5. Age 5 is typically when we start kindergarten or a school setting. And if you're not regulated, you tend to not do as well in school. Children can be taught regulation, and there's lots of strategies that we're going to review on how to teach kids to regulate. So the question is, why do we need to regulate? And there's really a connection that thinking and emotion affect each other. If you can regulate your emotions and keep your emotions regulated, then you're able to access and use your thinking brain. It's really important that adults learn to teach kids how to intentionally regulate themselves. That when they come into school, they know that they need to put their backpacks away and sit down and get ready for learning. That's intentionally learning to self-regulate. And they have really shown a lot of research that shows that intentional self-regulation predicts school success for children. So that's one reason we do it. I also like to point out that when you're not regulated, it is much harder to activate your thinking brain. And for an example of this, what happens if you are ever driving along and you have lights and sirens behind you and someone says, "Pull over," it's really hard to understand what that person asks for, because sometimes we're so emotionally overregulated that we're not able to think and process. So that's what happens to kids in class or in school when they're not able to engage. So we're going to review Dr. Daniel Siegel's hand model of the brain. This is an extremely useful tool in teaching kids how our brain works when we are not emotionally regulated.
One of the most rewarding experiences for me has been to study brain science and apply it to the experience of parenting. And the hand model of the brain that I use to teach parents is very useful to understand that. So if you take your thumb and put it in the middle of your palm, put your fingers over the top, this is a very useful model of the brain. And when we can actually see in front of us what's going on in the brain, then we can change what the brain does. So let me walk you through very basically what happens in this brain and the structures in it. And it goes like this. The spinal cord comes up representing the wrist, and then you have coming up into the skull the brain stem and the limbic area, which work together to help regulate arousal and your emotions and the way you have a fight, flight, freeze response. These are below the cortex, the limbic and brainstem areas, and the cortex is this higher part of the brain that allows us to perceive the outside world, to think and reason. And this frontmost part of the brain, right behind your forehead, so the person's oriented like this, is actually the part that regulates the subcortical, limbic, and brainstem areas. This regulation is very important because sometimes we can have all sorts of things happen in our life. We're tired, we're exhausted, someone pushes a particular emotional button, and we can flip our lids. So rather than being tuned in and connected and balanced and flexible, we can lose all of that flexibility, even lose moral reasoning, and act in ways that are terrifying to others, including our children. Now, you can actually bring yourself back online and come back to the high road and make a repair with your child, and that's important to explain it to them. And you can also use this hand model of the brain to explain to children, even as young as 5 and 6, how to understand when their emotions are rising up from the brainstem and limbic areas here, and how it's overriding the prefrontal area and making it so they may be about to flip their lids. So I've had kids come tell me that they're about to go flip their lids and they need a break. They need a timeout. And by even just naming that, they can tame it. And that's the power of using the hand model for ourselves and our children to help us all make sense of what goes on in the emotional communication that we have in the course of day-to-day life.
All right, so you've just seen Dr. Dan Siegel provide information about the hand model to explain how our brain works in emotional regulation. And this is a wonderful way to teach children about how to regulate. The palm of your hand when it's open, imagine that being your limbic system, which is where all your emotional fight, flight energy comes from. Your fingers come over the palm of your hand, and that is your frontal lobe or your prefrontal cortex that really helps control all those emotions. And that is what we're trying to teach children their brain looks like when they are in control. So self-regulation in the hand model, we want to make sure everyone understands that self-regulation helps our cerebral cortex, that's our higher level brain, gain control of our limbic system, and that's our emotions. So when your hand is up like this on the slide, that shows that you are working out of your limbic system. You are not regulated typically. Your emotions are telling you what to do. When you're starting to regulate, your frontal lobe is starting to come down, your cerebral cortex is starting to control your emotional system, and the closed fist on the slide shows when your higher level brain, your frontal cortex, is regulating your emotional brain. And this is what we'd like to teach children to do. And actually, it takes about 25 years for our frontal lobe to connect fully and be able to regulate, which is why we need to be teaching kids how to do this. So here's some examples of different age groups and what self-regulation can look like. In toddlers, thumb sucking is often very common. Holding a stuffed animal, snuggling a blanket, rubbing some fabric. You can also see kids regulating by hitting or headbanging because they're giving input to themselves. In school-age kids, a really common way to regulate is wiggling. And wiggling is what kids do. And what do we tell them in school? Don't wiggle. Well, they actually are wiggling to self-regulate. So it's always important to think about that. Chewing on things, so chewing on pencils is common. That's a good way of regulating. Getting up, moving around, humming. We have kids who will hum when they're regulating. and that works for most situations, but not always. So there might be some options for replacement regulation activities. And you can see young children in school also hitting and headbanging to help regulate. In teens, you often see listening to music, loud music, electronics, fidgeting, moving around, humming. Those are the ways that teens are often helping to regulate themselves. So it's just kind of a good idea to know at different age ranges and developmental ages what you can see as self-regulation behaviors. So why do we use the Calming Kit? The Calming Kit has a lot of tools and supports that helped to provide appropriate self-regulation and to teach self-regulation, which is what we need to do. So the Calming Kit, which you have already purchased with your video link here, is a group of tools that provide sensory strategies and emotional supports to assist children with regulating their bodies and emotions so that they can be ready to learn. Remember, if you're not regulated, you're not engaging your thinking brain. So it's really important that kids are regulated in order to do well in learning. So when do we use the Calming Kit? When do we teach? It's good to know this. You can pre-teach when everyone's in a regulated state. That is an appropriate time to teach. You can, when a child's just about to become unregulated, that is actually an appropriate time to teach, and we'll give you some strategies in a minute. When someone is full out unregulated, this is not a good time to stop and have a teaching moment, because as we know, when you're not regulated, you are not engaging your learning brain, your thinking brain. After a child has had unregulated and is starting to regulate again is another good time to teach self-regulation skills. And then obviously when we're back to calm and regulated time and able to access our thinking brain is a good time to teach. So the bottom line is just remember, try not to have teachable moments when someone is in the middle of not regulating. So items in the Calming Kit, we've got included for you are bubbles and Play-Doh. We have a squeeze ball, and I'll explain why. A glitter bottle or a glitter wand, which I'll explain why about that. Taking 5 breaths visual, why that's so important, 5 breaths. We have a calm down social story that's included in the kit. There's some calm down strategy cards, activity cards, and then we have a feelings wheel to assist kids in helping to identify their feelings. Some things that you can add to the Calming Kit are crayons or coloring sheets. I know older kids often like to use colored pencils and do shading. That can be relaxing. There are folks that include books, having water or a snack in there. Sometimes we become unregulated when we're hungry. So that's been a popular item to add. Calming pictures can be very powerful. You can have earphones in your Calming Kit if you want to add them, either noise canceling ones or ones with music. Again, music and meditation and an iPod or iPad is a good idea. A weighted sock or a weighted snake you can have, and that helps to support and calm folks, kids. And then you might think of some other items as needed, depending on your age group. So those are just some items and examples. And so why do we use these? So I'm going to go ahead and explain that to you, why these items tend to work for self-regulating. So when our body gets upset or stressed out, we tend to stimulate our emotional limbic brain, and we have lots of energy that comes out quickly. So that's why squeezing and physical activities are a really good way to help reduce that for kids. So we have included a squeeze ball that you can squeeze. You can also do wall push-ups or chair push-ups, or carry a heavy load of toys, or wear a heavy backpack, or put a sock snake on you. But often we see kids when they're get that trigger of being upset, they have a huge burst of energy. So this is a good way to help support that. So that is indicated on the slide by the hand being open all the way. So how to get rid of the energy is the squeeze ball we talked about. Play-Doh can be very soothing because you use your hands and do heavy pressing, and that can release some energy. And then we have the calm down activity strategy cards, have different activities in there that you can use to help support these kiddos. So why do we use a glitter bottle or a glitter wand? And you have to be there to see it, but it really does work. It allows time for reflection. When someone is in high unregulated state, a glitter bottle or glitter wand gives them, it's almost like meditation. It's something to focus on, takes their mind off what's going on, and it gives them a little bit of time to calm down naturally. So I've really had great success with glitter bottles and glitter wands. So I encourage you to think about using those. The feeling wheel, again, you might use when a child's just about to be unregulated or is just starting to re-regulate after they have lost their regulation. So a feelings wheel, by just helping kids to identify their feelings, connects their thinking brain with their emotional brain, and the thinking brain takes over and you have engage your thinking brain, and that helps to regulate you. So I really encourage you to have kids learn to identify their feelings. Why do we use 5 breaths? We actually have a nice little visual in your kit to support kids taking 5 breaths. And so let's just practice. We are going to breathe in for a count of 4. You're going to hold for a count of 7. And then you're going to blow out for a count of 8. And I want everyone to reflect on how they're feeling. So ready, set, breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and blow it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How do you feel after that? Just think about it. Reflect on that. That is something that we truly need to be teaching children that we work with, and adults, by the way. It actually has been shown to stimulate the parasympathetic response. Your oxygen consumption decreases, your heart rate slows down, your blood pressure decreases, you calm your mind, and your muscle tensions decrease. So I actually always tell people, if you're going into the doctor's office to have your blood pressure measured, this is a good way to get it down a few points. Another really good way to use 5 breaths is to pair it with bubbles. Most kids cannot blow bubbles quickly. That doesn't work. So blowing in and blowing out is actually very relaxing. And so that's a really good way to regulate. And this is one of the calm down strategy cards in your kit. Blowing bubbles. Everyone loves bubbles. Put smiles on faces everywhere. So a calm down social story. This is also provided in your book. And a social story actually supports by providing a process, step by step. It provides pictures. It offers choices of ways to calm down. It's written in the child's perspective. It has pictures of children in it, so kids can connect with it. And it gives kids a way to learn how to calm down. And you wouldn't use it when you're totally unregulated, but when you're just starting to become unregulated, or when you've just finished becoming unregulated, is the time that you use the calm down social story. So I encourage you to take a look at that and try it. Again, doing it before reading the story, before anyone's unregulated, is a good time, so that kids have in their mind what the steps are. We have calming strategy cards in your kit, and these calming strategy cards are really useful for kids. Kids love them. They're useful for when you're just starting to be unregulated, or when you're just becoming back to calming after being unregulated. And what it does is it gives you some visual options to choose, and it gives you some choices. So these are the calming strategy cards, and one of them is stretch, and it's on a card that you can look at. Listening to music is another option. Blowing bubbles is another option. And there's a set of about 10 to 12 activities. So I encourage you to look at these calming strategy cards. So to summarize, we would like to share with you some overviews of what we just discussed. And self-regulation, as we have shared, children need to learn at a young age. It can be taught, and I would encourage you to look at and utilize the hand-brain model. We shared some strategies to use when a child has flipped their lid, being unregulated, and then some strategies for when a child is still in control. But the bottom line is, the more we teach and assist children in regulating at an earlier age, the better success they have in school. So enjoy using your Calming Kit. The Calming Kit is a group of tools that provide sensory strategies and emotional supports to assist children with regulating their bodies and emotions so that they can be ready to learn. So the question is, how will you use this information? Enjoy, and we look forward to hearing from you. If you need more information, please contact us at inclusioncollaborative.org. Thank you.